Thank you, Jen. So good morning, everyone. My name is Kim Lindquist. I'm the Director of Events and Marketing for the Exeter Area Chamber of Commerce, and we're hosting our 5th Virtual Connect session. So thank you for joining us. This has been a really helpful session for members to get some great tips on how to work on their business during this awesome time of pause, and also offering up some good key tricks and tips to keep your business protected. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today on this session with Rebecca from Comcast Business to talk about cyber threats. But first, I'd like to just do a quick round the horn of introductions. So Rebecca knows who's on the call today, but also so who's listening knows who's on the call as well, to see who's involved. So I will start it off with Donna Buxton.
Hi, good morning. I'm Donna Buxton, and I was excited to see that you're offering this special program on security. None of us can be too secure, especially in this crazy world. So thanks for pulling this all together. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. No, we're happy to have you on the call. It is important. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but we all know how important it is. So it's good information. Sue. You're muted, Sue. There you go. Perfect.
And today is Earth Day.
Oh, Jesus, look at me. Hold on. I was playing. I'm sorry.
Earth Day.
Oh, sorry, Sue Brusa. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Hi, everyone. Sue Brusa with Relive International, where we have patented nutritional products and a powder formulation that we love to help people get their health back.
Great. Thank you. Steve at the lake.
Not really, but it's a good background.
Yes.
Steve Swaljay, I am a financial advisor with Northwestern Mutual and Chamber Ambassador, here to support Rebecca and the Chamber and learn a little bit about cybersecurity, because obviously mitigating risk is a huge part of anybody's financial plan, whether it's personal or business.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. Margaret.
Margaret Demopoulos, Exeter Fine Crafts.
Thank you. It looks like I've got a KJ down here. I'm not sure who that is. If you wouldn't mind. You are?
Oh, yep. KJ, I'm just interested to see what's out there in regards to cybersecurity.
Perfect. Thank you very much for being on the call today. We appreciate it. Bobby, who are you? You're muted, dear.
There we go. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you. I'm looking forward to hearing all of Rebecca's presentation on cybersecurity. My name is Bobby Vandenbulk. I'm the Director of Member Partnerships at the Exeter Area Chamber.
Thank you. Jen Wheeler.
Hey, everybody. Good morning again. Jen Wheeler, President of the Chamber. Nice to see you all this morning. And thank you, Rebecca, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and expertise on this subject. And thanks, Kim, for facilitating this important discussion.
Got it. Thank you. And Susan Frampton.
Hi, I'm going to be assisting Rebecca with the presentation. I'll be answering any questions after.
Perfect. And Rebecca, I'll get to you in just a second. Just a few housekeeping items. As I already said, make sure you're muted during the presentation so you can hear all the great information that Rebecca has for us. I've put in the chat a couple links. One is to the Exeter Area Chamber of Commerce resource page on our website. That is chock full of information, anything from financial to business help, chamber links to help utilize your membership better with our directory, our news feed, and also community links. So there's town links in there that has information on what your particular town is doing in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as some ideas if you have kids or just looking for ways to get outside. A lot of the parks and recreation links are now out there. So definitely check out that website page as well to make sure you're getting the most up-to-date information. We are updating it daily, so make sure you check back. We're trying to keep that page as fresh as possible for you folks. Also, I've put a link out there for the Town of Exeter Business Survey. Darren in the Economic Development Office, he's the director of that department. He is looking to get feedback from small businesses on how this is all affecting our small businesses here in the Exeter area and how best to advocate for the business community. So please make sure to take that survey to help him out, make sure he's delivering the right information and representing our small businesses appropriately. So we'll jump into today's tip of the week was cyber threats in your business. You know, we've all heard and read there's a lot of phishing scams out there, and scammers are trying to take advantage of small businesses and individuals during this really vulnerable time. So we thought it would be a good idea to bring in some experts who can kind of help us, you know, navigate, you know, what threats are out there, you know, particularly regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, and also some tips and resources on how you can protect your business, or if you've been a victim of this, how to bounce back from that. So that's why we've brought in Rebecca Blichmann from Comcast Business, and I'm going to jump into her presentation. So if you want to do a little introduction about yourself, I'll get us rocking and rolling with the presentation. So Rebecca, take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim. I'm super excited to have been able to put this together because it is a very important topic, especially in today's environment. What we're really seeing right now in the cybersecurity world, it's affecting everybody. And so I am so grateful to be able to lean on my 8 years of experience in the telecommunication world to really be able to deliver this content for you. So a quick background on myself. My name is Rebecca. I serve the greater Exeter area for Comcast Business as a senior account executive. My role is in consulting with our local area businesses on their telecommunications needs and primarily on their internet. And that's where the cybersecurity really comes in. So with me, I will have Susan. She is going to be fielding any of the questions that come in through the chat box. I am also scheduling individual consultations with Susan and I to take a look at your individual concerns and help give you some individual support when it comes to making these plans to mitigate your risk of being affected by a cyber attack. So with that, I'd like to jump into our agenda, Kim, which we are going to really be looking at the cyber threats that are out there and some high-level definitions. We will look at the predominant, COVID-19 specific threats. We'll talk about, mitigation prevention with the network, device, and employee layers. And we will leave some time for some question and answer and some open dialogue at the end as well. So what's interesting is that when we look at cybersecurity, a lot of customers and business owners really truly feel like they are not going to be impacted by a cybersecurity attack. What happens is 83% of businesses, though, they lack the funds to be able to deal with the cyber attack. And not only that, but up to 60% of small and medium businesses that have experienced a breach go out of business within 6 months. So that's why this is so important. And wouldn't you know, Google blocked more than 18 million emails that contained malware and phishing just last week alone. How many spam emails still ended up in your inbox? And that's what we're really talking about today. So Kim, if you'd like to move forward, we'll jump right in. So looking at it from the types of threats that are out there, there's 4 predominant ones that we're going to just touch on today, which really deals with the malware, ransomware, phishing, and botnets. So malware, at its very definition, is what we think of as a virus for your computer. We've got viruses all over the news these days, but this is one that really is not getting as much attention as it should. So what is malware? Malware is any type of malicious software that will infiltrate and can damage your computers, your networks, and even access your proprietary information. Some of the other things to consider as malware is spyware. This is information that is being taken from your devices that you don't even know is happening. They can record your keystrokes in order to get your username and password credentials for different software or different websites. It can also take a look at your video camera on your laptops. All of us have always put those little tiny, things over our webcams, and I always say it's a really good practice to keep doing, because spyware can reside on your computers without even knowing it's there. So what really does this mean, right? So what we're talking about today is how COVID-19 especially has created this fear in all consumers and all business owners, because we're all human, right? And unfortunately, cyber criminals are really exploiting this time and that fear. So an example of what we're currently seeing in malware is something called COVID lock. What that is, it's a malware that is downloaded onto your computer unintentionally by the user, of course. But what it does is it will install on the computer and it'll encrypt your data, especially on mobile devices, and it'll deny any additional access to that data. So for this specific malware, we're going to talk about ransomware as its own entity in a little bit, but I really wanted you to be aware that if you see anything on the news regarding COVID lock, that's what it is. So social engineering is really where malware comes in. It's a popular way for cybersecurity, cyber criminals to really manipulate human emotions. And that is so prevalent in today's. I don't know about you, but my emotions and my fear, even just as an individual and a mother and a family member, it's up there. And so what they're doing is they're using phishing emails. And the goal is to trick the users into downloading something or clicking on something. And often the messages are in the form of scare tactics or information that's out there, pertaining to COVID itself, either statistics or treatment plans or, even updates on the current infection rates. So the links that people click on is what links to the malicious websites. And we're going to talk about how websites can really be spoofed and cloned, and you'd be surprised at how there's a number of sophisticated individuals out there that can clone websites, and you would never know that you are not on a regular website from a trusted person. So the next one we're going to talk about is ransomware. Ransomware is a form of malware, but this is the most malicious type of thing that we are seeing right now, because it is especially targeting the healthcare industry. And what it is a form of software that will lock and encrypt a company's computer or data. So when we look at it from a patient care standpoint right now in the healthcare fields, it's really frightening and terrifying to think that, if a hospital is impacted by a ransomware attack and they do not have access to their patient records, including medicine, including their history, or even their care plans, can you imagine the impact that this has? And what's really impactful about that is right now, healthcare organizations are being targeted by this on a regular basis. And what happens is they really have no choice but to pay whatever they are being asked for, because they can't go without it. So what's interesting is that, over the last few years, in the last 4 years alone, the average cost of, our ransomware attacks are going up. And we'll take a look in just a minute on the next slide as to a graph that really shows it. But over the last 4 years, 1,400 clinics and hospitals and healthcare organizations have been targets of ransomware attacks. And the total cost of that has been over $150 million. It's unbelievable. So Kim, if you can go to the next where I can show you, this is the difference and the increase in the average payments made as a result of ransomware. And it is continuing to increase exponentially. And it's important to know that, yes, we're talking about kind of healthcare organizations, but consider all of the organizations that help support healthcare. You have HVAC technicians, You have plumbers, you have electricians, you have a lot of companies in the service industry, and those people and those contractors can inadvertently open up a hospital or a healthcare organization to an actual breach. Now, moving forward, before we do, is there any questions from anybody regarding malware or ransomware that we can take a look at real quick? Okay, so moving on, we're going to take a look at the next slide, which we're going to dive real deep into phishing. Phishing is the number one thing that you can really do to protect yourself against right now. And believe it or not, 9 out of 10 viruses are caused by email phishing. 90% of threats come from phishing attacks. So what is that? We have all had the spam emails that are clearly fraudulent with lots of different, grammatical errors and typos and things like that. But what phishing is an attempt for someone to obtain usernames and passwords or credit card details by disguising themselves as a trustworthy entity. So what happens is now in today's environment, we have a number of things that are out there on the news, from information on the SBA loans, information on the PPP and the Family Care Acts, on the stimulus checks, on unemployment. There is so much information out there. So consider someone who is looking to either apply for a loan or updates on where their stimulus check is, and you got an email that has, hey, easy way to sign up, click on this link. People are more apt to do that in those environments because that is something that we are all looking for. And they know that. These cyber criminals, they know that. And with the overwhelming amount of the news coverage that's out there, these phishing attacks really are exploiting the public fears. And how does it work? Cyber criminals will send you an email that's claiming to be from a legitimate organization. And a lot of times it has information about the coronavirus specifically. And in that email, you might be asked to either open an attachment to view information on the statistics, or to click on a link to go to an informational page, or even for donating to other good causes in supporting our healthcare workers. And once that link or download is initiated, your computer will attempt to connect to the malicious website. And once you're on a website, you may not even click on anything else, but the viruses will automatically download in the background without you even knowing about it. And what it does is this gives your computer complete vulnerability to having someone take over from a direct hack, be able to log those keystrokes, access any of the information on the network and on your computers, your financial data, identity theft. And interestingly enough, the WHO, the World Health Organization, had their website cloned. And what happens was those emails that were sent out from the WHO directed them to this website that looked exactly like the official one, but it had a string of coding in it, which infected thousands of computers and thousands of networks before they were able to identify it and even know it was happening. So some examples to really look out for. You're going to think about emails that you receive from Amazon. Your package was not able to be delivered. Well, or your payment wasn't able to be processed. Click on this link. Anything along those lines. People soliciting for any kind of donations for, the personal protection equipment or charities. You have to be extremely careful about any email that you get that isn't from someone that you know directly. So on the next slide, Kim, I'm going to have you jump forward just a second to this one here. This is an example of some of the things that you can look for and should be looking for. You can take a look at the sender's email address. So on this one, you'll see that it shows as management at Amazon Canada. Well, the A is missing, but you wouldn't really know that if you're looking at it really quickly. Or you can also look at the website itself that might be directed to it by hovering over any links. This will reveal the actual destination one. And if it doesn't match, or if it's going to something that is not what you need it to go to, don't click it. A couple of other things to consider. So take Amazon again as an example. We're all living through Amazon and having everything shipped and delivered. I don't know about you, but I love it when I see that truck come over just about every other day. In the Amazon website, the Amazon, it could be transcribed to show as Arnazon. And again, when you're looking at it quickly, it looks like Amazon, but it's not. So those are a couple of really key things to look for, in addition to just the regular typical things you look for: the typos, grammatical errors, a generic salutation, blurry, fuzzy infographics. Those are some of the things to really look out for. So Kim, I'm going to have you jump back once. There you go. So we're going to just touch on this very quickly: a botware or a botnet. This isn't something that you are most likely going to see very often, but it is very important to know about. So a botnet, it's actually a robot network. What it does, it's a number of different internet connected devices, could be computers, could be the devices in your home connected to the internet, Alexa, your Ring doorbell, your Nest cams, your thermostat, anything that's connected to the internet can be impacted by a botnet. And each one of them are used to create a net. And individual cyber criminals can control thousands upon thousands of devices to create distributed denial of service attacks. What those do is they will target specific websites and they will flood them with traffic from these other devices. And what happens is then your website will crash. I'm not sure if anybody remembers when Instagram went down for a full day, or when Netflix and Hulu were also not able to be accessed for a good number of days a couple years ago. Well, the result of those was because of botnets. There's a company named Dyn, which was recently acquired from Manchester area. Dyn was the hosting company for Netflix and Hulu. And when they were impacted by a denial of service attack through botnets, that's what took out all of Netflix and Hulu for everybody. Can you imagine that happening today? God, you'd have a lot of people. So moving forward, we've got a couple more things to go over, then we'll open it up for questions. So a couple of things just to reiterate, to really look for is those fraudulent internet domains, and you can do that by just being careful and taking a look. Be very wary about charities. You know, it's amazing to see the amount of support and caring that's out there. Just ensure that any charity that you are going to be working with or or supporting is one that is local, or one that is legitimate, and even working with them directly by calling them as opposed to doing over the internet. That's also really important. Taking a look at, fraudulent loans where the donations are really those spoofed websites. It's very important. So next slide, what we'll do is go over just some basics on cybersecurity and what you can do to help safeguard yourself. And this is important from a personal standpoint at your home to also in your business. So taking those steps, ensuring that you have your files backed up regularly and your software is updated regularly. that's going to be the number one method to help prevent and respond if you are targeted by a cyber attack of any cause. Strengthening those home networks. So making sure your network has a strong password. It seems so simple, but you wouldn't believe the number of individuals that keep the generic passwords. It blows our mind. So, using your strong passwords. What's interesting too is this is one that we're all, I think, guilty of, is using people that you're going to remember, because we got hundreds of passwords for so many different websites. So using things like the names of your kids, birthdays, anniversaries, special dates, stay away from them. Because really anybody who is active on social media, there's enough information, even if you are careful, that people probably would have a decent way of guessing answers to your security questions based on the information that you've shared. So a good rule of thumb in using strong passwords is if you can actually use a phrase instead, a short sentence, something that's going to have a capital, a full sentence and punctuation. That's going to help. And it's a lot harder for someone to guess a phrase than a single word and number combination. So moving to the next one, we're going to talk about just the 3-tiered prevention and the different prevention methods that you really need to look at in order to complete a comprehensive plan for preventing a cyber attack. Prevention is key. Once you are impacted by one, it's incredibly financially draining as well as can be devastating to your business. So prevention is number one. And we look at this from 3 different areas. So number one is your network. All of this information is being transported over the internet. Without the internet, these things would not have any way of spreading and continuing to move over. Think of the internet nowadays as your connection to everything in the world. And once there's one instance, it can have just such a trickle effect. So really protecting at the network level is key and number one. So we do that through Comcast as the internet provider by providing network filtering. We also can provide monitoring and reporting. Those are really important, and most internet providers do offer these as well, but it's often overlooked because a lot of times people consider, oh, I've got antivirus on my computer, I'm good, no problem. Well, that's not enough, and it really is not enough. So really looking at your network, including firewalls, private networks, who is on your network and controlling access to your network, and even the ability to segregate your networks. So consider a business that has a secure Wi-Fi network for all of their computers in your office, but then you also have employees with their mobile devices that are connected through the Wi-Fi. You may have the ability to control what happens on your corporate devices, but you have no way of knowing what people are doing on their mobile devices that are open on your Wi-Fi network. So you can help safeguard that by putting things in place at the network level. So on top of that, you have devices, because it really is the devices that get infected by these malicious software. So protecting those computers and other devices using antivirus softwares, the regular scans, backups. Number 1, 2 is using multi-factor authentication. How many times do people have the ability to share devices? It is very much recommended to have single users using devices and making sure that you have not only a password or login credentials, but even a secondary authenticator, such as like Microsoft has authentication. There are a number of ones out there which really truly just ensure that the person accessing it is truly that person, using software updates and encryption. The biggest vulnerability our employees. It's human elements, because guess what? A computer isn't going to accidentally click on a link. A computer or a website isn't going to accidentally open another window or pop up on an advertisement. So really your employees and the humans are the number one and most important factor in all of this. And you can really help by creating awareness around those phishing, and even go on ahead and test your employees. Send out a fake email that you build, and you can track and see how many people A, open it, but B, also click on the link. You'd be surprised. 20% of people, even in Comcast, will open links that are not acceptable links to be opening. And we're trained on this all the time. So also make sure that they have a strong passwords, and you can use softwares in order to enforce that. Really setting clear policies and enforcing them. That is number one. It really is, because if you don't have clear policies in place and you don't enforce them, it is not going to do anything. So with that, I'd like to go to the next slide, Kim, which this is going to show you kind of the steps that you can take, starting with identifying those gaps in your network or your environment. Susan and I are happy to help take a look at that for you. Also, in order to protect and put those plans in place that we talked about, be able to third, detect if there is an issue, be able to respond and have a clear plan in place. So if you are impacted, and lastly, be able to recover from an impact. This is number one, because there's a lot of individuals who think, I'm safe, I'm good, it couldn't happen to me. But you don't want to be one of those 60% of small to medium businesses that go out of business because of an attack. It may not even be from a financial standpoint, but it could be even from the image impact that it has and your loss of trust from your consumers. I know when Target and Home Depot had their credit cards compromised, I didn't shop there for a long time. I also steer away from Blue Cross and Blue Shield that impacted my kids' health records as well as myself. So these are all things that are so vital and important. And with that, that is the majority of the content that I wanted to deliver for you. So I will open it up to some open dialogue, question and answers, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, Rebecca, for that great information. That's a lot to take in, but all very good and valuable. If anyone here on the call has questions before I jump in with the couple that I wrote down. Sue, Brusa, did you have a question?
No, but I thought all of that was so interesting. Very great.
Yeah.
Great.
And this information in these slides are available for you. Please know that these are not, direct from Comcast. These are ones built from my own experience and resources that I have found. But this is able to be shared, Kim, and even if you wanted to put it up on the website, the Chamber website, absolutely happy to open that up for you.
Great, yes. Yeah, the recording along with the slides will be on the website by the end of the week, so keep an eye out for that. Donna Buxton, you have a question?
Yes, what do you suggest that we do for a daily scan to see if there's any viruses? Is there a specific one that you use, or what do you suggest?
Yeah, that's a really wonderful question. So there's a number of different softwares that you can use on your computers. You may already have one. Most come already pre-downloaded, either with something like Norton. Norton is an industry leader, as well as Kaspersky. Both of those are highly rated and, very effective at having those scans completed on a regular basis.
Can you manually go in and do a scan yourself?
Absolutely. You can, most of them will automatically scan based on a schedule that you can set yourself, or you can also do manual scans as well.
And how do you do that?
When you open up the actual software for the, like either Norton or Kaspersky, it will pop up on your computer with a dashboard that will give you information on when the last scan was completed, and any threats that were detected. And there's typically a very clear button that you'd be able to see to perform scan or schedule regular scans.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Rebecca. Jen Wheeler.
Yeah, thanks. That was fascinating. Thanks so much for sharing all that with us, Rebecca. One of the things that we've seen actually is, I think it's called like social phishing or social engineering or something, where we'll get an email that looks very much like it's legitimate, and it's not asking us to click a link or download something. It's asking for like gift cards or iTunes something or other. I know that happened to Bobby. She got an email that looked very much like it was from me, that said, "Can you meet me outside? I have some, or can you call me or something?" And I'm sitting right next to her. And we also had someone on our board, when we had board members' email addresses on our website, which we took down because of this. Someone sent an email to a board member posing as another board member during a meeting that was happening, because the meeting was on the calendar, saying, "I know you're in the middle of this meeting. I really need $150 in iTunes gift cards. I can't explain right now, but can you help me?" And the person actually did it. So those kinds of things aren't necessarily a downloading, kind of getting in the middle of stuff. It's weird more than anything else. But, is there anything on the systemic level that can prevent that from happening? I mean, as I said, we removed email addresses from the Chamber website. For board members, we kind of changed our calendar around a little bit, but, it still happens. So is there anything that we can do for that?
Yeah, so that really is a fantastic example of just how sophisticated people are getting in this fraudulent nature, right? That is a huge increase right now, and it's called social phishing is what it is. And that's where someone has taken a specific interest in trying to infiltrate your organization. And it's just awful, because you really, there is no way of stopping that from a network level. Or even from a system level, because it's all going to come through unless you're able to identify and see. That's where you can look at the sender's email address. Sometimes you'll see an email and it only will show like a first and last name. And, in order to really see the full email address, what I do is I'll actually go and pretend to forward that email, because what happens is then in the body of the email, you get that sender information, and that'll show you the actual email address it's coming from. And then also to taking that extra step, if that is the case where someone is trying to obtain gift cards or, money, electronic money delivery, you certainly should always call the person directly. And this is something that isn't targeted just at businesses, but it is also from an individual level. So taking that extra step today and saying, "Hey, this is coming from my brother. Let me call him or text him or see what's going on." So to answer your direct question, there is no way to really filter or stop those on a network or a device level.
Yeah, so it sounds like the solution is more on that, when you did that 3-tier approach, it's more on the individual employee piece to be more mindful and suspicious, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's also on all of us to educate our coworkers and our employees and even our family. A perfect example of that, I have my father. He is a network engineer, and wouldn't you know, he was targeted and he lost $1,000 to Microsoft twice. And I consider him to be a very intelligent individual. But you can see that it really is a matter of just being aware and knowing the best practices, because you are not going to be able to 100% protect yourself. It's really, and just the education piece and doing the best that you can. And knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. But cyber criminals, they do the same thing. They prey on people's vulnerabilities, and that's what they specialize in.
Can you speak to the cyber insurance? I saw that as one of the things in can you speak to that a little bit, what that is? I've never heard of insurance for the cyber part.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of commercial insurance agencies will have policies in place for reacting and overcoming from a cyber attack. So what happens is it's a specific clause in your insurance policy to ensure that there's a certain level of dollar amount that they will, reimburse in order to overcome a cyber attack.
That's really fascinating. I never heard of that before.
We always had cyber insurance for many, many years when we had the oil company. Someone could go in and order $300,000 worth of oil under an imposter, and so we always had that covered.
Donna, that's a great example. Right now, too, a lot of e-commerce is being done. And so people are utilizing credit cards that are obtained fraudulently to order products. And you, as the business and the retailer, ship out your products and then are never able to recuperate the funds for it.
I was talking more on the wholesale end, because we would go and order, 1 million or 2 million gallons over the next 8 months. And with security and cybersecurity, all the terminals and everybody had to make sure that that information was actually coming.
Donna, you just muted yourself.
Through big things like that. And when we pick up product or a contract is hit, then they'll just draft out of our account $100,000 here, $200,000 there. We had to watch that really carefully, and we had to make sure that our security and our firewalls were really secure, and make sure that the staff didn't click on anything. And I know some of our staff used to get upset with me when I would tell them, try not to do any personal stuff on the work computer and click on anything you're not supposed to be clicking on, because it's really important. So luckily it didn't happen to us, but you never know.
You took some really great steps, and thank you for sharing that, because it's a really real example as to, the impact that it could have had you ever been impacted by it. So thank you for sharing that, Donna.
Susan, did you want to expand on Susan Frampton, the ransomware customer you had? Do you have any kind of follow up, how they're doing now? Are they putting in steps to bounce back? Can you elaborate a little bit on that before we sign off today?
Oh yeah, definitely. It took them a good 6 months to get everything squared away, and they had to decide what important was important for them to get back. Because when they say, hey, we want X amount of dollars, and we'll offer, they actually segment what they're going to offer you back. So it's like a bartering, you know what I mean? We'll give you this information if you pay this amount, but if you're only willing to pay this amount, you're only going to get this much information. So they had to figure out, what they couldn't live without and what they could and what was important. But once that breach was made, they had to get their lawyer involved. They had to, so they're paying that expense also, because they had to make everybody aware that this information was released. And then the FBI actually had to step in because of some of the as I put in the email, the sensitive information that had to be tracked. But there's no way, like even with the FBI involved, your chances of finding out who this is slim to none. And especially if the FBI can't figure it out. So what I was able to help them with was, we have a platform called Security Edge, which doesn't only block malicious things coming in, it also protects from going out. So meaning if one of their employees was playing on their cell phone and is on their network, it's going to block them from getting to these bad places, where other applications do not do that. They normally block one in, not out. So that helped them out a lot also. And then also it scans like every 10 minutes. Where normal, like Donna had said, you know, she has her set up to scan what came in on like a not in kind of cleans things out. This does it every 10 minutes and you get reporting on it. So they are now able to say, okay, wait a minute, this is trying to get in, and they can see how helpful the tool is too. They can see how many attacks, because they actually came back to me and was like, we had no idea that we had this many hits within a month.
Wow.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm glad you're able to help them get out of that. You guys have such great tools, and I'm happy that they were able to put those in place and get through it. That doesn't sound like a fun situation to go through at all. We have a few minutes here. Does anyone have any last minute questions before I ask Rebecca to give us her big takeaway of the presentation? All right, so Rebecca, thank you again for that great presentation and all the information. Out of everything you presented today, what would be the big takeaway that our people who are on this today listening to it, that they can implement today? What would you say the number one thing is to do?
You know, the number one thing really is just that awareness piece and ensuring that you have a proper plan and policies in place to be able to help educate as well as respond. And prevention is number one. Like Susan mentioned, you know, once you are impacted by especially either a ransomware attack or a hack of any kind, recovery from that is a long process, and it is extremely financially taxing, and some businesses will not recover from it. So prevention is number one, and in order to do that, it's that education piece. So if any of the members of the chamber or even your associates want to set up some time with us on an individual basis, that is what we are here for. We are happy to help educate and even help guide the process in creating a comprehensive plan.
I think that's the biggest thing, like companies trying to navigate this. They try to do it on their own, but it really takes someone who's an expert to really navigate it the right way. So they're putting the right steps in place. So that's really helpful information.
And just to remember, it doesn't discriminate either. Like I had that business that was, you know, had very important information on clients and then their personal information on their employees. But just to like sum it down a little bit, my boyfriend is a general contractor, and somebody came in and took, like one night he was working, goes in the next morning, and all his files were gone. They just wiped out his computer, like all his architect designs that he had done on the houses he was working on. It was just gone.
It's just, yeah, it can happen so fast and right under your nose, and that's really
What about
important.
backups? I remember years ago we used to put a disk in the computer and run a backup every night and take it out every day. But now everything's done online. What about backups? Can some of these be saved by what they have all backed up, or what's going on?
Yeah, in fact, there's been a number of municipalities that have been impacted by this, and police stations. So what their prevention, you know, and recovery methods is they do regular backups, either a hard backup like on a disk or an external drive, or even a cloud-based backup system. And having something that's fairly recent to be able to, if their devices are wiped or their files are corrupted, then they're able to take those computers or those impacted devices off. A couple of really great ones, you know, are out there that are cloud-based. A lot of information is being moved into the cloud to enable a lot of more flexibility for businesses to access their information from, you know, remote areas without having to be physically connected to an on-site server. But it's always a good practice to try to at least have a scan, a backup done on a weekly basis. Just so you have a fairly recent, you know, backup that you can restore from in the case that you are impacted.
We used to run our backup every night and then take the back off the premises just in case the building burned down. We wanted to make sure that if the building did burn down, we could be up and running the very next day. So after you take the back off, make sure backup, if it's a removable disk, make sure you take it off the property. That's what we always did.
Wonderful.
And you can also go to Staples and buy like a stick. You just put it in, download it. So it's like literally like this big. It's not a disc anymore.
Yeah, I'm talking old school. I'm old. I grew up using a typewriter.
And hey, I did too.
Well, if there aren't, does anyone have any last minute questions for either Rebecca or Susan? Good. Well, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you, Rebecca, for that wonderful presentation and being so thoughtful with the information, and Susan offering your expertise in that area as well. We really appreciate it, and we're so grateful to have experts like you in our membership and being so willing to share the information. So thank you so much. And as we've talked about before, these recordings will be on the website on the resource page along with the slides that Rebecca provided. So if you want to share that information with anybody or just want to go back and revisit what was talked about, please feel free to do so. And if anyone would like either Rebecca's or Susan's information, any one of us at the Chamber can get you that information as well. So definitely always be in touch with us to let us know what you need. So thank you, ladies, very much. And with that, we're going to sign off for the day. Hopefully
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate all that the Chamber puts out there for us to learn a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Great. Have a good day.
Enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Good day.